The second presenter is Dr. Vivek Singh, who's one of my young colleagues at LV Prasad. He did his DNB and fellowship at LVP and also is in the cataract refractive team, one of the very talented surgeons, and he's going to share his case with us. So over to you, Vivek.
Thank you, Dr. Somshila, and thank you, AIS at the outset, just to allow us to present our cases in front of such galaxy of stars. And moving from a surgeon who was a master in cataract surgery to her apprentice, I'll be presenting this second case. My patient presented to us in January 2020. He's a 45-year-old gentleman, and he presented with both eyes blurring of vision since 1 year. He's a known case of diabetes mellitus. He presented to us, his vision was hand movements in the right eye, and his visual acuity was 2600 in the left eye. He had a senile mature cataract in the right eye and a significant amount of cataract in the left eye as well. So we decided for the right eye cataract surgery, and this cataract surgery was performed in March 2020, and a phacoemulsification was done, clear corneal, under local anesthesia. There was hardly any astigmatism, as you can see in this patient in the right eye. And we chose, a patient had opted for a hydrophobic acrylic lens. We chose a Tecnis lens over here with minus 4.2 of residual myopia. On post-operative day 1, so the intraoperative course was also uneventful. On post-operative day 1, the patient was comfortable and he did not have any complaints. The visual acuity was 20/40, improving to 20/30 with the pinhole. When he presented to us at 1 week, again, the patient was comfortable. His visual acuity was more or less the same. At 1 month, the patient presented to us. This time, he started complaining of some photopsia, a positive photopsia here. His visual acuity was 20/20 with plus 0.75 spherical error. He started complaining of glare. This usually happened when he used to go for nighttime driving. He was comfortable during the daytime, and he was keen on left eye surgery as well at the same visit. However, the COVID lockdown ensued, and he could not get the left eye surgery done. This is the 5th month post-operative visit, and he visited us in one of our secondary center. This time the visual acuity again was 20/20, and he continued to complain of the glare during the nighttime driving, and he was comfortable during the daytime. And again, he wanted the left eye surgery. This time he could not travel to the tertiary care center, so he decided to get it done at the secondary center. At secondary center also, the same lens was implanted with minus 0.5 residual myopia. And this time he was very comfortable with the left eye. The symptoms continued for the right eye. His visual acuity was, this was the refraction at 1 month. He was 6/6 with 0.5 residual error, 7.5 residual error in the right eye and -1 slender in the left eye. So because of the complaints of the glare, especially during the nighttime driving, the surgeon over there advised brimonidine to be used twice daily for him in the right eye. And this was the 1 month visit after usage of brimonidine. He was not at all comfortable, and he wanted some solution for the right eye. He could not tolerate the lens in the right eye. Now, this is almost 7 months after the surgery. So he was referred again back to the tertiary care center, and this was the slit lamp picture that was that you can see. This is for the right eye. There's some amount of trace posterior capsular opacification in the inferior part. The lens is very much in the back. I'll just show you the retroillumination picture. Now, this is very interesting. Now, if you see the lens and if you see the entire limbus, so if you can see this lens is almost decentered a bit nasally. And if I have to trace the entire rhexis margin for you, this was the rhexis margin. So there was a kind of overlap of around 0.25, 0.5 nasally. However, at this area, there was overlap which was lesser than 0.25 or 0.5. However, this area has a perfect overlap, but this area had slight lesser overlap, and the decentration of the IOL can be made out. This was the other eye surgery, left eye, which was done in the secondary center, which has a very well-centered IOL in the bag and a perfect rhexis, you can say. So in the retroillumination picture, you can make out the rhexis over here, and the lens is very much very well centered. I would not discuss. I would not go with the review of literature because I would want to hear from the masters over here. Yeah. So there are the what are the possible reasons what made our patient unhappy here? Was it the lens edge? Was it the PCO? Was it the decentered IOL? Or could it be the high angle kappa? The lens was very much in the back. So could it be the high angle kappa? And my second question to the panelist would be, how would you manage this patient subsequently? Because the patient wants a solution now. Would you go ahead with a large optic IOL, or you would consider a piggyback IOL, or you would want to exchange the hydrophobic acrylic lens with another material lens, or would you perform a YAG cap? So over to the panelists.
Dr. Virendra Sangwan and Dr. Namrata will be discussing this case. So maybe Abhinav, you could still share, sorry, Vivek, you could still share the first part of it.
So I think this is a clear-cut case of dysphotopsia, and I think it was Vivek who was presenting. No, you said Abhinav.
No,
Vivek.
I corrected myself.
Vivek was presenting.
I corrected to Vivek. Yeah.
So I think very clearly and nicely he's shown that the nasal part is the one, which is the overlap is there on this side and not there on that side. Was angle alpha, measured pre-operatively in this?
No, doctor. Namrata, it was not measured pre-operatively.
So I think that is one thing which is very important, not only for premium IOLs, but also otherwise. And the edge phenomena is causing dysphotopsia in this. What about the other eye? Do we have the other eye picture also of
Yes, Dr. Namrata. So this is the other eye picture. It's very well centered, and this is the rhexis margin that is perfectly overlapping the lens from all the sides.
So that is, something which is little intriguing in this, because it is there in one eye and it is not there in the other eye, and his problems are similar, in both the eyes. But does he experience glare even with the closing of the other eye, the right eye?
No, Dr. Namrata, he doesn't complain of the problem in the left eye. He's complaining only about the problem in only the right eye. Yes.
So I think it's a very good case control kind of a case where, one eye is showing this and the other eye is not showing. And obviously there is dysphotopsia that is present, which needs to be taken care of.
So how would you manage this case, ma'am?
There are several ways in which, people have tried to manage it. One, you yourself said that, capsulotomy. Some people even try to, remove that edge. Some people try to exchange the lens. So I think that is going to be very drastic. But on brimonidine, he's not, there is no response on brimonidine.
No, he was not very comfortable after 1 month of usage of brimonidine. And there was a trace PCO, the edge of which was coming into the visual axis, if I can share that picture, this one. So if you want to try the YAG capsulotomy first, and just in case if the patient does not improve, and then you want to plan the secondary IOL, that would be a bit tricky. So what would you do in such scenarios?
In my opinion, this photopsia is not, it is actually not coming because of the PCO. I think it is because of the overlap, which is a mismatch on the nasal and the temporal side. So there are several mechanisms or several options described for this. And one of them is that you can implant a very late, one of our residents has described, you can implant a negative dysphotopsia ring inside. So that also can be done. But YAG capsulotomy, I think.
Namrata, just a minute. Can you tell me how would you make a distinction between whether the effect is due to the lens edge or due to the PCO? Is there any way to make a distinction pre-operatively without any intervention?
Because PCO is only present inferiorly. If I can see it more inferiorly, then it's not there in the center.
But the edge also, see the center
is there normally in most patients. I mean, even if it is there in normal patients, also will not lead to so much of glare, and incapacitating kind of glare, which one complains of. One may complain of diminution of vision, slightly with this kind of a PCO, but glare with this kind of PCO, I don't think is going to occur.
Can I just make a comment, ma'am?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the mere fact that this is occurring particularly during night driving, it indicates that the pupil is dilating and it is the lens edge which is responsible. And the PCO which is there is almost below the center. So that may not be the reason, because the night glare is the main problem. So positive dysphotopsia, although it can occur because of some PCO, But I think the lens edge, which is there, the mismatch between the overlap of the anterior capsule and the edge, that seems to be the more likely culprit in this case.
So
I agree. Yeah, I think I quite agree with you on that, Dr. Bhalla, that it is the lens edge probably which is, uh, which is causing a problem.
So this slight decentration of the lens where there is little less overlap on the temporal side, I think that maybe seems to be the culprit. So if we do YAG capsulotomy in this and later on rotation or exchange is required, it becomes more messy and difficult. So I think the
So how
YAG
much?
should not be done.
No, yeah, I completely agree should not be done. But how much of time did it take, post-operatively? Because dysphotopsias, they generally tend to resolve over time. Positive dysphotopsias, they resolve over
Much earlier
time.
than negative ones.
Negative
Most,
dysphotopsias are symptomatic only in 2 to 3% of the cases. So
yeah.
one needs to know, what is and what was the type of dysphotopsia? Did he say he saw arcs, streaks, rings, halos, or did he say he saw dark areas? Usually negative dysphotopsia would be seen as dark areas in the temporal field.
Dr. Namrata, it was a positive dysphotopsia. He was complaining of glare and halos, mostly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, streak of lights. Yes.
Okay.
And how was the response to brimonidine which he had used?
He was not very happy with brimonidine, and the dysphotopsia started 1 month after the surgery, and it still continued till the 7th post-operative month.
So just one point I wanted to add here is that the edge of this particular lens that does not have any refractive power in it,
Yeah.
and that is the edge that the patient is seeing. So it's just like how the Rexus, as Vivek has shown, is a little not covering that particular edge, which has no refractive correction on it. And also Abhinav had an interesting idea which has been described, that the placement of the haptics can be rotated from 12.6 to 3.9, and that is also another technique.
So for these cases, generally what happens is it is good to wait, no intervention, because neuroadaptation might occur, or you can exchange the IOL because it tends to occur more with the acrylic IOLs, which have a sharp edge as opposed to the smooth edge of the IOLs. And of course, if the IOL has high refractive index, then also it can occur. So another thing is that people have even done reverse optic capture, so that you raise the optic edge above the anterior capsule with the haptic in the bag. So that is also one option which can be done. And of course, neodymium YAG, not of the posterior capsule, but anterior capsulotomy of the nasal capsule can be done. So that can remove the reflection of the anterior capsulotomy edge on the nasal retina. So that has been done. People have gone to the extent that they have even truncated nasal optic truncations has been done, but I think that would be too severe. And of course, piggyback IOL can be done in the sulcus, which again I think would be too severe. So to my mind, if you have to do something, one can either do a reverse optic capture, or one can do a neodymium YAG anterior capsulotomy of the nasal capsule as a first line of management.
Can I add a point? Tracy, and study of the aberration done for this patient?
So we had advice, the final visit, we had advice for the aberration, but could not get it done. So that is why I do not have the scans with us.
So,
and much akin to the neodymium dysphotopsia ring, which has been described by Dr. Prakhyat Roop, who's now working as a senior resident with us, and he won an award also in East Coast for that. Something like that, Vivek is also described. So I think third option could be also that.
So I think that we'll move on. Thank you very much, Vivek, for sharing this wonderful case. Thank you, Dr. Namrata. And
what did you do, Somshila? What did you do for this case?
Oh, the patient is waiting for. He was supposed to get operated. So some of the investigations are pending, but he didn't come back again. So we asked our colleague at the secondary center to start him again on either diluted pilocarpine or brimonidine and see how he does with that, because he's a driver by occupation, and so he's unable to drive. That's what he said. So he's going to use diluted pilocarpine and see how that works.
Somshila, I will just make a quick comment. I would measure the pupil diameter in the bright light and dark, and then try to see if it is the edge is a problem. Otherwise, just continue on conservative and explain. If still doesn't go away, then consider YAG. To me, the YAG probably might be the responsible, because once you measure the pupil size in dark, that will explain you what is happening.
All right. Very valuable information and comment, Dr. Sangwan.